Alright, we got Google Earth here. I got this display set to 4K. There's a couple things if you want to use this technique you should do. Um, I turn the magnifier on and I increase the amount until I don't see Google anymore and I don't see this bar at the top, which I don't know any way to make them disappear other than to increase the magnifier and your accessibilities. Um, Also, I'll go to Tools, or is it View, Sidebar, and I'll turn off borders, places, roads, and there's a couple settings in here that you should know in the options. Um, of course, I have high quality terrain, use 3D imagery, anastrophic filtering's at high. Um, Now there is one thing, this elevation exaggeration. You can exaggerate the elevation of things um, to give it more, altitude. Like it's really great for mountains. Sometimes they don't look, even though this is Google Earth, sometimes they don't look as high as you may want them to. So we'll turn the sidebar off. Now since I'm making this video, I can't record video at the same time. I can export this. While I'm doing that, so I'll take some screenshots. So I'm going to just find some mountainous areas, and just the way Meshroom works is you really don't want a lot of white. Like I was going to make Mount Everest, for example, and the white does not work well. Things that are blown out too white. Now I have found that the Blender GIS plugin works really good and for some things, and this thing works really good for some things. This does not work really well for cities. Well, this is flat anyway here, but like places where there's cities, it don't do too good. Maybe I don't take enough screenshots. You probably got to take a ridiculous amount of them, but as you see, as you zoom in, it's like loading in and stuff. You want to wait until everything loads up to the highest level that it's going to load, and whatever it is that you want to put in your scene, just remember, the farther you're out, that's the level of detail that when you make this to the right size in the game, when you're driving on that, it's not going to be looking like this. It's going to be looking like this and then blown up. So this is great for background stuff. If you want to put some mountains in your background, I wouldn't use this for this reason, this white here, but like if you want to stick some mountains in your background, or I also don't like this dark shading. It's really good for background stuff. You can drive on it, but you just realistically aren't going to get a texture from Google Maps that's going to be detailed enough in your game that you're going to be satisfied with. Also, you don't really want to take pictures from here where it's got to figure out all this background stuff. So I try to catch it at an angle, like so. And it is possible to do some far away screenshots but you generally pick a point and you rotate it around it until you get enough photos all the way around that it can calculate it. And then if you want to get in closer, you can get in closer and take some photos, and it'll do even better when it calculates it. I haven't decided if I want to make this spot or not. Let's just, I guess we'll just do it. I don't want to spend all day flying around, so I'll just take some screenshots. And when you take it, like with the NVIDIA card, that crap pops up there. You can turn that notifications off, but it'll sometimes throw your screen off. So then you gotta like reposition it so you don't see the Google or that bar. If that bar is in there, it's gonna draw it on the texture. But you know, up there you're gonna start seeing it appear in places, and you'll see Google or the letter G appear. But after you take that first screenshot, and then you wait on that to disappear, or you turn it off, but I guess you can kind of see what I'm doing. That might help by seeing it. I gotta move this hand out the way. I've seen that hand appear in there too at night. I'm really worried about it much. What I usually do is I just take a video. I just tell it to record video at 4K, and I just pan around, but I try to do it so that it's off to the side, or you know, you don't see it as much. And then I just, in Blender, I load the video, and then I tell it to export. Say it's 2,000 frames, I'll tell it to export every 100th frame an image, and I'll use all those images rather than doing it this way. And you don't have to take too many. I'm not going to go all the way around it. Just going to take a few and get in a little closer. But I ain't really certain it's really loaded any more detail up close and from when it was farther away. Now there's also Google Earth on the web, but I downloaded the Google Earth Pro that runs on your system, not in your browser, because for whatever reason, and I'd love to know how to fix it if somebody knows, when I enable hardware acceleration in my browser, man, my browser just craps all over itself. It locks up artifacts everywhere. You'd think the graphics card's bad, and it's nearly impossible to get back into the options to turn it back off. It sucks because it affects my video playback in YouTube. But when it's enabled, like the one or two times it did work great. Man, I have no playback issues. But I use Edge. But I've also tried Chrome, and I get the same issue. I like looked online to see about, you know, and saw Microsoft's response about it, and I never, it looks like a rainbow here. Let's notice it. Let me get a shot from over the top. And we'll be done. We don't have enough photos. So, I can turn this magnifier back off. Get out of here. And I'll increase my DPI so you can see better. Alright, yeah, it's probably a relief right there, huh? So all these images are saved on, I gotta find them. See if they're in the screenshots. Desktop, there they go. So I got these photos. I'll load Meshroom. Over here is where we're going to drop them all. Oh yeah, minimize that one out of the way and just throw them in there. I got 16 images. Now I'm going to try to save it first. You've been having issues with this thing. So I'll just call it just you know, I already called it that. I'll call it this, I guess. Damn, let's give it a different name, something I ain't used yet. The mesh filtering here, these nodes, these are all the steps that it's got to go through, but you don't have to do anything. It does all this for you. But there is one thing that you do to help the polygon count be more nice for the game. Where these connect here, you just right click on this line and remove it, and then you just add a new mesh decimate, and what you do is right click, mesh post processing, mesh decimate. You'll drag mesh into input mesh, and you'll drag output mesh into mesh. And when you pick a node, you got these attribute tabs for every one of these, but when you pick decimate, you got this is like the inspector in the editor, basically, is what this is, the inspector. But you can just slide this down to like 0.2. That'll help your mesh. Also, you can change the texture size. If you find that your model is making two different textures, you can increase it up to 16K. But if you can get by with 8K, just leave it there. Actually, I think that's actually 4K. It was 4096 by, well, maybe it's 8K. It's 4096 by 4096 is the size, I think. But you can change it to JPEG. You can leave it as a PNG. You also have over here in the camera initiate next to it, and feature extraction. This is the amount of detail that it'll gather from the images, and it's defaulted normal, but it can go up to ultra. And you also have the describer quality that can go up to ultra, which if I change one of them, I'm just changing them both to ultra, you know. So with that, let's get it started. And I'm going to just pay attention to this feature extraction to make sure it doesn't hang. More than half of your RAM's being used by other applications. I already know where that's at. I got the game running. I got the damn JBeam editor running. I got a photo editing program running. Blender's running. Let me save this. Or no, I don't need to save that one. I got that Blender running. This is the mod I just made. I'll save it, and I'll clear it out of Blender. Yeah, I hadn't forgot to close all those things. Yeah, this is where it helps to have more memory. Like 16 gigs of RAM, just as nowadays you need more than that for doing stuff like this. I mean, it'll work on 16. Keep my eye on this. If this don't update, I might have to restart it. I didn't realize that about the memory. As long as it updates again, be alright. But it has hung in here before and just stopped. there's a couple things in here that takes longer than the other things. Feature extraction takes a while. Depth map takes a while. I think depth map and feature extraction may take the longest amount of time. I think this sucker hung on me. Yeah, because it's not even... Let me just reload the bastard. I'm not even going to save the file. I don't know if that's what's causing it to hang. It's having issues lately. For me, for whatever reason. But you can see this again if you need to see it again. Yeah, that's already where it was at a minute. See, I got more free RAM, but still ain't a lot of memory. Yeah, it's fine now. It's going on through. But what it does, it goes to these images, and it basically looks at all these little points. It might be hard to see that color. I'll change it to pink or another color. There, you can see that better. But it takes all these little points, and like if that point there, same point, you know, if it sees it in like 3 places or 4 places, then it can basically make a polygon out of, like, as it triangulates it. It basically uses all that information to make the mesh. So now it's its structure for motion. After it finishes this step, you'll see a point cloud, which is basically like these little dots, like little circles. It just basically, it'll show you, it's kind of like a crude representation of what the model will be. You can also see all the cameras that were in the scene, what it figured out where the cameras were based on the photos. And once it gets past this, I believe is when it'll tell you which one of these pictures, if any of them didn't work, or it discarded them for whatever reason, it'll show like a little red symbol. Like these are all green, but there'll be a red one. That'll happen if they're blurry, real blurry, or if they just can't get reflections don't work worth a crap. So if you're going to do a car, you got to find one that's very dusty or covered with pollen. Water doesn't do well either. Mirrors obviously ain't going to do well. But here you can see these are the cameras, and like I said, when I did the screenshots, I said I didn't go all the way around the thing. I just kind of went around it, and then I went around it, and then I got closer and went around it. And see, it intelligently figured out all those camera positions. And like 3D scanners that do like 3D model scanning is basically what they do. They said they use like lasers, I guess, to trace the objects, but it works basically the same way. At least that's what I can tell from like watching how they do stuff. Like I'll sit here and wait, I'll play with these controls, I'll like make the balls larger, smaller, make the cameras larger, smaller, just something just to kill the time. But you can go back to the images, and now it adds another layer. It's got like the depth for them, like there are these different color nodes you can see. Alright, it's rounding the corner here. It's probably it depends on your CPU how long it'll take and how many pictures you have, and it also depends on the resolution of those images. Since these images are 4K, it's going to take longer than if they were all 1080p, which 1080p works too. When I export my videos, I'll just have Blender usually export them at 1080p, especially if I'm using like 50 pictures. And I've seen it work fine with 1080p. But this is running on an i9 10850K, but this program ran just as fine on my older i7 7700K. It just took a little longer. Not a lot longer. I mean, really. And also, I turned off I lowered the AV instruction set in the BIOS to -2 because my CPU was getting hot running this. It runs a lot better now. I mean, it ain't faster, it's a little slower. I'd rather it run a little slower and be cooler. It's almost done. See, it's at the texturing point. If any of these turn red, there was an error, there was a problem. You can click on it and go to the log and read it. It'll tell you what was wrong. If it's yellow, it means it's working. And with all these, as it's going, you can look at the log and see what it's doing in the background. So now it's finished. What we'll do is make these smaller. We'll double click on texturing. We'll turn off this eye for structure for motion. That'll get rid of all those little balls. And now we can see the model that it made, which, as you can see, is pretty close. You can look at the photograph comparison to what the model compared to the photos look like. Like, it'll show you which one's the real picture and which one's the rendered image. It's hard to tell. Okay, that's the rendered image. So this is the photo on the left of what it figured from the photo, what the model looked like. And you can do this with real objects. It ain't got to be. You can even do this with screenshots in a game, as long as there's not a HUD and it's not pixelated. I made some things from Cyberpunk. Made something from Chernobyl Light. You know, like simple objects, not like whole cities or anything, just simple little things on the ground. You just fly around. Alright, so click on the texturing and go to the attributes, and here you'll see at the bottom in attributes, you'll see where it stuck the mesh. I'll just copy that to my clipboard. It's just a temporary folder, and then I'll paste it, and you see how it makes these crazy directories. So that's why I copy and paste it. It's easier to just find it that way. And it did only use one texture. If you look at these textures, yeah, it was pretty close to running out of room. Just barely made it. If it would have made two textures, I would have just went back to texturing, and I would have told it up here at the top to be the next resolution, and then it would have fit them all into there. So what I'm going to do is copy these into another folder, just so that they're easier to find, and I'll just call it Google like Google Mountain. I'll stick them in there. I'll go ahead and change this texture name, because I know it's going to be actually, let me do this. Let me load up my program, GIMP. This is free. I suggest you get it unless you have another way to export DDS files. DDS runs more efficient in the game than a PNG. basically the PNG, your CPU has to I guess it's you call it decode it before it gets to the GPU, where a DDS, it's just, I guess, goes straight to the GPU. It's a lot faster. So as you can see, it's 4096 by 4096. All I'm going to simply do is just export it as a DDS file in that same folder where it just came from. Now down here, remember, it's not save as, it is file export as. Down here, click on this file type, pick DDS, change the name to something other than this, because if you use Meshroom, it'll name every texture that, and then you'll run into problems. You have textures overwriting other textures, so I'll just call this Google MNT. Export, and here's where you got to tell the compression to be BC1, and generate bitmaps. Export it. I'll just do one more thing. I'll go to filters, generic normal map, make a generic normal map for it. Then I'll export that in the same folder. Actually, I'm going to export this one into the folder where I'm going to put this model, Ukraine art shapes miscellaneous, Google Mountain _ N for normal maps. You don't have to put that. That's just for me to, a mental note for me, so I know it's a normal map. See where it's at. Levels, Ukraine art shapes miscellaneous. Export. This time you'll pick compression BC5, and you always generate bitmaps, or you're going to have sparkly, twinkly noise on your texture. Now, what I'll do is load Blender, and I'll import in that object. Get rid of this cube, get rid of this light, this camera, and import in this wavefront OBJ. Go to my desktop where I put that folder, Google Mountain, pick textured mesh, and import it. And it won't have a texture because I changed the texture name. Just pick viewport shading, pick the object, go here to material properties, base color, undo this little thing here, and right here open up this new DDS file. Now you don't have to do that. You can just leave it texture 1001.png. That's fine. You don't have to do all this. I just do it to make the game run a little better when dealing with these models. Object, this is where you gotta center it, because wherever it's at here is exactly how it'll spawn in the game when you go to import it. So you want it right side up, and you want it in the middle. Set origin to 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is this center point, which you can move the cursor, but you really want to leave it at 0, 0, 0, which is just simply where the horizontal and the vertical and or the up and down, left and right, and front to back line all converge. That's the 0 point. So you just object, set origin to 3D cursor, object, set origin, geometry to origin, and stick it right there in the middle. Now you're just going to rotate it until you get it right side up. You can look at these left, right, front views and get it more precise. Now the next thing to note is, like, if you're looking at a side view, just remember the red line is the ground, or if you're looking from the other way, the green line's the ground. So you don't want all of it underground. But you see the green line going through here. You can just raise it up. And you can lower it once it's in the game, but I usually try to get it above the ground. That way I know I got the whole model in the scene mostly. I know how much I need to alter my terrain to kind of hide this stuff, or how much to raise the terrain, you know, because I'm going to raise my terrain up probably to fix that. Alright, now it's just habit. Yeah, I don't know if you actually have to do this, but I just, after I finish moving it, I just apply all transforms. Just habit. Been doing it forever. Now, this is very small. It probably fit in the palm of your hand if you could put your hand in the game. So you can use this measuring tool here and just draw you a line to get an idea of the meters. You know, you can, use that, or what I personally do, I just import in the model from the game of a car. I just import in a collider, which I already got a car from the game on my desktop for scale. There it is. It's just a hopper. I told you it's a small little model. And now I'll just I'll scale up this with the scale tool, and I'll get it to the size that I want it to be in relation to the size of this truck. Now you can already see, move this over, you can already see, like, this is about how it's going to look in the game. I mean, you're driving on this is what the texture is going to look like. But if you're driving over here, I mean, it looks fine. It probably needs to be even larger than that, actually. It's sometimes like, yeah, there's a little road here from the map. And just move the car over there, and man, it's hard to see that car, ain't it? Now I just exported, I just went into the game folder, and I just unzipped one of their cars in the Steam common, your Steam apps, BeamNG, and I think it's the common folder, not the common, I mean the content folder, and then you got levels and vehicles. I just go on the vehicles and pick you one and unzip it, which I only save like the shell of the car, but when you import it in, there might be 50 parts in there. I just deleted all of them but one part and exported it as a DAE and renamed it. So I got my own little like thing for I can use for scale, which works pretty good, I gotta say. So now I got this where I want it. I'll delete it. I'll just make sure object apply all transforms to be on the safe side. Now, if you plan on driving on it, you need to make a collision mesh. But you also have to add in a couple empties, which are basically like folders. So you go up to add empty plane axis, and you'll do this twice. You'll double click on both of them. You'll name one of them base 00, and you'll name the other one start 01. Then using your, you'll select start 01, you'll hold shift and you'll left click, drag it into base. Alright, and then you'll do the same thing with this textured mesh. You'll select it, hold shift, and drag it into start 01. Now, we need to check the polygon count. So Now this whole time I've never left object mode. We've been in object mode this entire time, and we've been looking at it with this viewport shading enabled. If you turn that off, you just see the mesh or the wireframe, which that ain't too bad. But because we had the program decimated already, but we'll just check it. We'll go to this with the object pick. We'll go to this wrench, add modifier, decimate, and it's, well, it is quite a bit. It's 161,000 faces. So we'll just reduce it and get it down to something more manageable, which, you know, the more you reduce it, the worse it's going to look, unfortunately. Let's say 0.25. We're just going to leave it at 100,000. I hate to really reduce it too much. Now for the collision mesh, I'm going to reduce that quite a bit. So I'm going to say here, once I got this number set, apply it, and now I'll duplicate this. Now I'll hide the first one so I can see the second one. I'll double click on it and I'll say the name COLMESH-1. That'll tell the game that you're colliding with it. I'll go to this modifier, decimate, and I'll reduce this one significantly. Alright, then I'll apply it. I'll pick them both and I'll say object shade smooth. And now, I think that's everything. Oh yeah, the name of the texture. Let's change the name of the texture by picking one of them. And since you copied it, you don't have to do this to both of them. It'll do it for you. But select one, open this, then open this one, and you'll see the name of the texture. Just double click on it. Now this is the name. You got to name your texture in the game before you import this model. So just remember what you call it. I'll just call this Google_MNT. Now let's export it into the game. Export file, export Collider. Find your folder for your level that you're going to play it on or put it in, which for me it's levels, Ukraine, art, shapes, miscellaneous, and then I'll just name what I'm going to call the model. I'll call it the same thing, Google_MNT. Now this capital and lowercase, this matters too when you're searching for it, but it's case sensitive when you're looking for it, and it's also case sensitive when you're making your material. If you name it lowercase here and you got an uppercase in your material editor, it's not going to work. So as a habit, I just make all my materials lowercase. That way it's easy to remember. I didn't capitalize something. Now it's in the game already. We'll just load the game. We'll load that level. And by default, it exported the texture into that folder also. We already put our normal map in there from, if you did that, it's already in there because we purposely put it there. So we'll start over here. Now these are big objects, especially when you scale them up really large, and that's why I make the material double-sided, so if I'm underneath it I can see it. I know where it's at. So I hit F11 to get my editor. I will, if you don't have this open already, just go up to Window, Material Editor. I'll just select the sky, so I ain't got anything, I know nothing's picked. New material. Now this is where you're naming it the same thing you named it in Blender, which I said I was calling it Google Mountain, Google_MNT, all lowercase, create. Color map. You gotta navigate to that folder that you exported the model to, which I said was Art, Shapes, Miscellaneous for me. And named the texture the same thing. I thought Google, but I named it in texture. There it is, Google Mountain GIS. Alright, open. Now the normal map, select it, and then pick that, if you did that step, pick that normal map. And then advance down here, say double-sided, receive shadows, animation, no, not animation, lighting, properties, anisotropic filtering. If you want to do PBR materials, you can do that too. But I'm not getting into that. Just hit save current material. Now you can bring that model into the game. If you did not do the texture first, the model will be red. If you forgot and you went ahead and brought in the model, don't worry, you can still make the texture. Just save it, this little save after you make it, and then close the game completely, reload the level, and then it'll be fixed. Granted, you named it the right thing, you spelled it correctly, you didn't have any typos. Go up here to Window Asset Browser and then pick all models, and then you can start typing in the name that you exported, and you should see it pop up. Google Mountain. Left click and drag it into your level. Want to fly away from it. And there we got our model. And you can pick the model. You can hit 2 to rotate, 1 to move, but don't scale it. If you scale it, you'll screw up the collision map for it. For some reason, the collision maps don't scale. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So it's better not to fool with it. You just have to manually scale it in Blender. So once you find where you want it, you got where you want it, you want to say you want to drive on it, all you got to do is go to Edit, Rebuild Collision. Alright, now you can go back out of your editor, back to the game, and you can fly to a spot and spawn your vehicle. Which, like I said, the textures don't look great on very big objects. Realistically, to have a texture for an object this big, you probably need something 50,000K. Not 50,000K, 5,000K or something. That's why the game's textures, they work so well the way they do, because they can do microing and all the other stuff, and it looks like PBR is coming to it too. I had to go off on that side, but that's alright. I didn't pick the best place to probably make a model, but I didn't want to waste your time flying around Earth forever. But there are some cool places. I thought of trying to make the pyramids and other things. I made magic balls like this. That was like, I think I took like 100 pictures to make that thing, and I mean, it just don't look right. The water's not actually moving, so you know, it kind of looked funny. I mean, from far away it looked good though. Now, also, this isn't an actual terrain. This is a model, but the forest will work on it. You can put forest items on it. You know, the texture isn't great of the model, but you know, you can spruce it up. There's a tree I made, a tutorial how I made that. I actually like that little tree. I'll stick a few of them on this mountain. Maybe not up that high. So yeah, the forest works on it. You can plant forest stuff on it. That's no problem. You can also drive on it, obviously. I don't know if decals will work on it. It may have, I don't think, maybe if you put the decal, maybe if a decal is, I don't know. There's an over the top function, which, yeah, the decal's going under the object, but if you put over objects, it'll, well, I thought it would make it on the top. Over objects. Yeah, it's not over it. It's drawing it on whatever's down there. Part of it's on it. There it goes. But as you can see, it's not perfect. Yeah, that's not going to do well like that. Oh, you can also make mesh roads to, you know, go up your mountain or whatnot. Now, the only way you can integrate the real ground in here is to have a terrain block under it. Now, if you got a terrain block under it, let's see, like I'm off the other side of the actual map, but I do got some of it under the map here, so you can use your terrain tools and you can move your terrain down to be just underneath it, just under the surface, so that you can benefit from the terrain grass. what you can do too is you can bring up your terrain to be over it a little bit to kind of blend things in. Use your terrain paint. But you know, I don't know what you want to make. I'm just saying, you know, you can mix and mesh the objects just like any other object in a game. You know, the terrain works with it. You just have to make sure that, you know, if you're going to do that, you basically need to have a terrain. You know, you just need the object to be, you know, to work with your terrain. It's got to be in it, around it, like in it, like this. So, you know, you got that ground you can pull up. I'd be ill if I'd accidentally save this level after I do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Alright, so you got this, you got your terrain, you can, terrain tools, you can raise the height, say align the mesh, and then it'll pull it all the way up to meet the bottom of the mesh. Alright, give me a second here. I'm going to say flatten, set height, then terrain height picker. I'll pick this point. Alright, that's quicker doing it that way. Lower, and this is what I was saying, where if you know, you got a model that's cut off, you can kind of start blending your terrain to kind of work with it. Sure reminds me, I haven't backed my level up in a while. I try to back it up daily in case I accidentally screw something up. Also, I export my terrain, so if I ever need to do a backup, something happened to my TER file, I can re-import it. That happened one time. I made my first level. My terrain was being saved in a damn. It actually started as the grid map, the old one. All the information was being saved in the grid map folder. Yeah, you know, in the user folder. Anytime you modify a game level, it'll make like a copy in the user folder, which I had the grid map in there. Well, my terrain file, every time I did any work like this, it was saving in the grid map folder as its terrain file, which I never played a grid map, so I didn't know what it was doing. I had a problem with my textures. I told it to what do you do? Verify file integrity in Steam, and then I cleared the cache. That's what it was. I cleared the cache. Well, when I came back, my Ukraine map was gone, and I saw that damn grid map on here, because it fixed grid maps. What it did, and it restored it. So I had all my objects in this level all over the grid map, but all my elevation, my textures, everything was screwed up. But luckily I had a backup, and that wasn't a problem. I guess I probably need to make a video on how to back up your level, how to restore it if something screws up. That'd be a good thing to know. So you get the idea. You can sit here forever and just, use these models and use the terrain to work with the model. And if you got different textures, I got several cliffs that I can, kind of just find something that somewhat matches or close. Maybe it won't match, but you just have to be creative and figure something out what works for you. But yeah, that's just basically what I was trying to say. You just have to mesh them in some way. Blend them, I mean, not mesh them, but blend them together. If you ever get this happen, or you see this crack where you start seeing like holes in your, just, I'm not going to save it, but rebuild the collision, save the level, exit the game, reload the game, and that crap will be fixed. I didn't know how the hell to fix that one time, and it drove me crazy trying to figure out what was going on. So that's how you would get it to work. But like I said, it's really better for, just background stuff, really. And stick a lake on it. It's a water block. And if you want to, your model, whatever you make last is going to be near the bottom of your scene tree. But that stuff works great for like background stuff. Not really perfect for foreground stuff. I mean, for stuff you drive on, but I think that's about everything. I can't really think of nothing else to say about this. Depending on how big the object is, you may can have your clouds kind of going over. I don't know how close I can get to the ground. That's the wrong one. Yeah, it seems like no matter how close them get, you never really quite get to them. They always just seem like they're higher than you are. Now, I don't have my fog enabled, but I never use that fog. We used fog in the 90s to hide performance, to hide the detail so things ran better. I can't stand the thought of it nowadays. I don't even know how to make the fog back like it's supposed to be. I done moved it. I don't even know what the default settings is for it. No idea. It seems like it's all or nothing. So I ain't gonna fool with it. I don't know how to fool with the fog. I never fool with it. But it's obviously not right now. So that's it for this.